The jungle was alive with strange sounds that echoed through the night. Insects with glowing wings buzzed between roots the size of houses. Leaves dripped with moisture, and the air smelled of damp earth and fire. A small campfire burned under the shadow of massive trees, its flickering light fighting against the endless darkness. Beside the fire sat a human soldier, his uniform torn, his weapon leaning against his leg. His face carried exhaustion but also a sharp alertness, as if he knew the forest was watching him. He had been dropped on this alien world by accident. His unit was destroyed in the chaos of the sudden war. The galaxy's rulers had chosen this world as their battleground, and humans had been pulled into it against their will. The soldier had survived for days, hiding, fighting, and running. His campfire was the only warmth he had managed to hold onto in this hostile world. From the shadows came movement. At first he thought it was another predator, one of the countless beasts that hunted in silence here. But as the firelight touched the figure, he saw her. An alien girl, tall, graceful, her skin glowing faintly purple as if lit from within. Her long golden hair shone even in the dim light. She stepped carefully, her boots leaving no sound on the ground. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with anger, but with something else, hesitation, maybe even fear. The human tightened his grip on his weapon, but he did not raise it. She was not armed, at least not openly. Her clothing was torn in places, as if she too had been running. A holster hung from her hip, but it was empty. The way she stood told him she had been through battle as much as he had. Her breathing was heavy, but her eyes remained locked on the fire. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the snapping of the wood and the distant cries of unseen creatures. The soldier finally broke the silence. "You lost too?" he asked, his voice rough but calm. The alien girl tilted her head. Her lips moved, forming words in a language unfamiliar to him. Then, slowly she tried again in broken human tongue. "War took all." Her voice was soft, almost uncertain, but clear enough. He nodded. He understood. They were both survivors of the same storm. He gestured to the fire, motioning with his hand that she could come closer. She hesitated, her glowing eyes narrowing. For her, trusting a human was dangerous. She had been raised to see them as intruders, even enemies. Yet the cold night pressed against her skin, and the warmth of the flames called to her. She stepped closer, her figure reflected in the soldier's tired eyes, strong but fragile at the same time. He shifted slightly, making space near the fire. "Sit, warm up," he said simply. His words carried no command, only an offer. She lowered herself slowly, sitting across from him. The firelight painted her skin in shades of violet and gold. She kept her gaze on the flames, but every so often she looked at him, as if measuring whether she had made a mistake. The soldier studied her carefully. She was unlike the others he had seen on this world. There was pride in the way she carried herself, but also loneliness. He wondered if she had lost her people, her family, just as he had lost his unit. The night grew darker, and the forest sounds grew louder. Somewhere in the distance, a roar shook the silence, sending flocks of glowing birds into the sky. The alien girl flinched, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. The human noticed and without a word, pushed a spare knife across the ground toward her. She looked at it, then at him. Slowly, she picked it up, holding it close. Her expression softened, but she did not thank him aloud. Instead, she simply nodded once, a gesture of silent respect. They sat together, two strangers bound by war, watching the flames fight against the darkness. The human felt a strange calm. He had been alone for so long that even the presence of someone who should have been an enemy felt like a kind of salvation. For the alien girl, the warmth of the fire was more than just heat. It was a rare moment of safety in a world that had taken everything from her. Neither knew what would come in the morning. Neither knew if they would remain allies or become enemies again. But in that moment, the tent of the human soldier and the fire between them became a fragile refuge, one that neither had expected to find in the heart of war. The night stretched on, long and heavy, but the fire's glow held the silence together. The human soldier adjusted his pack, pulling out a ration bar. He broke it in half and held a piece toward the alien girl. She stared at it for a moment, as if uncertain whether to accept anything from him. Her kind had always believed humans were unpredictable, dangerous, not to be trusted. Yet hunger pressed harder than pride. Slowly, she reached out and took the food. She bit carefully, as though testing if it was safe. Her eyes widened slightly at the taste, not because it was good, but because it was strange. The soldier chuckled softly. "Yeah, not the best," he muttered. She didn't understand all the words, but she understood his tone. He wasn't mocking, he was sharing something real. The fire popped, sending a few sparks into the air. For a moment, her gaze softened, her guard lowering. "You fight alone?" she asked, her voice broken but stronger than before. "Yeah," the soldier replied. "Everyone else, gone." His hand moved slightly over the ground, as if touching ghosts that weren't there anymore. The alien girl's face tightened. She lowered her eyes. Same, it was not just a word. In that one sound, he could feel her grief. She had lost people too. They were two survivors on opposite sides, carrying the same wounds. Hours passed slowly. Neither of them slept deeply. The jungle outside was alive with predators, and even the crackling fire could not hide their calls. Once, in the middle of the night, a shadow moved just beyond the firelight. The soldier reached for his weapon instantly, but before he could raise it, the alien girl placed her glowing hand on his arm. Her head tilted, her eyes focused on the dark, listening. Then she whispered, "Not enemy, watcher." He trusted her words, lowering the weapon just enough. A pair of glowing eyes blinked in the shadows, then disappeared. Whatever it was, it had chosen not to strike. By morning, mist covered the jungle floor. The fire had burned down to faint embers. The soldier stood first, stretching his sore muscles. The alien girl rose after him, moving with fluid grace despite exhaustion. Her eyes scanned the trees constantly, as though expecting danger. At every turn, he kicked dirt over the embers, then pointed deeper into the jungle. "Need water, need shelter," she nodded. "River, east." Her voice was still broken, but each word carried more certainty. Together, they walked through the forest. The ground was thick with roots and vines, each step heavy with the scent of damp earth. Strange creatures moved above them, some with wings that glowed like lanterns, others slithering silently through the trees. The soldier kept his weapon ready, while she carried the knife he had given her. Though small compared to her usual tools of war, she held it like it was a part of her hand. He noticed the way she moved, her steps silent, her eyes sharp. She was not helpless. She was a warrior who had simply lost everything. When they reached the river, the water shimmered with faint blue light. Fish with transparent skin darted under the surface. The human knelt, filling his canteen. The alien girl crouched opposite him, dipping her hands into the cool water. For a moment, the scene was quiet, almost peaceful. Then the river's surface broke. A massive shape lunged upward, a beast with scales like stone and jaws wide enough to swallow them whole. The soldier reacted instantly, raising his weapon. He fired, the sound tearing through the jungle. The bullet struck the beast's head, but its hide was thick. The alien girl leapt sideways, rolling across the mud with inhuman speed. She shouted something in her own language, her voice sharp like a command. The beast turned toward her, distracted. That single moment gave the soldier his chance. He aimed for the creature's glowing eyes and fired again. This time, the beast shrieked, crashing back into the river with a violent splash. Water sprayed over both of them. The human lowered his weapon slowly, breathing hard. His arms shook from the recoil, but he stayed on his feet. The alien girl's chest rose and fell quickly, her hand still tight around the knife. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other. Two different lives, two different worlds, but in that fight, they had moved as one. Finally, she gave a small smile, faint but real. Strong, human. He gave a tired grin in return. Fast. Alien. It was the first time they shared something more than silence. The first moment that felt like trust. They filled their canteens quickly and moved away from the river, knowing the noise of the battle would draw other creatures. They found a small clearing where sunlight broke through the canopy. The soldier dropped his pack with a grunt, sitting down against a tree. The alien girl stood for a while, scanning the jungle before finally sitting across from him. The soldier looked at her closely. Dirt and scratches marked her skin, but none of it dimmed her beauty. She carried herself with pride, even after losing everything. He wondered how someone like her ended up alone in a jungle like this. The alien girl, in turn, studied him. Humans were supposed to be reckless, dangerous, easy to break. Yet this one had survived battles, beasts, and endless nights. He shared his fire, his food, even his weapon. He was not what she expected. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It was something else, something waiting to grow. The clearing gave them a moment of rest, but both knew the jungle never allowed peace for long. The soldier chewed slowly on another ration bar, while the alien girl watched the canopy above, her glowing eyes catching every small movement. Forest was alive with predators, and even sunlight could not hide the danger. After finishing the food, he leaned his head back against the tree, closing his eyes for a brief moment. The alien girl tilted her head, studying him. She had never seen a human rest so openly in hostile ground. For her people, survival meant constant vigilance. Yet here was this stranger who could still allow himself to breathe. Even in the middle of war. Her curiosity broke the silence. "Why, you fight?" she asked. His eyes opened slowly. "Because I have no choice." His voice was low, almost tired. "War came. We didn't ask for it. But when it came, we fought." She nodded, her golden hair catching a beam of light that fell through the trees. "Same for my people. War. Always given. Never asked." The soldier studied her face. She spoke with bitterness that ran deep, as if her people had lived under the shadow of conflict far longer than humans had. He wondered how many centuries of loss her race carried. The sound of rustling pulled them back to the present. Both moved at once. He lifted his weapon. She drew her knife. Out of the thick bushes crawled a smaller creature, its fur glowing faintly in patches, its wide eyes shining with fear. It was no threat, just a young animal separated from its pack. The soldier lowered his weapon, but the alien girl did not. Her kind had been trained to see weakness as dangerous. A wounded creature often drew predators. But when she saw the human reach into his pouch and toss the creature a small scrap of food, something shifted inside her. The animal sniffed the ration, then snatched it up before scurrying back into the underbrush. The human chuckled softly. Better him fed than the attack later. The alien girl lowered her knife, still watching him. She was beginning to see a pattern. Humans fought, yes, but they also protected, even when it made no sense. It was unlike anything she had been taught. They resumed their walk after the sun began to dip, searching for higher ground. The soldier led the way, clearing vines with his weapon. The alien girl followed silently, her movements graceful as she scanned the forest. By nightfall, they found a rocky ledge overlooking the jungle below. From here, the canopy stretched like an endless ocean of green and blue light. The soldier set down his pack, beginning to prepare another small fire. The alien girl knelt beside him without being asked, arranging stones into a circle. When the flames rose again, the ledge became their new shelter. The The soldier pulled a thin blanket from his pack and laid it out. He glanced at her, then motioned toward the space beside him. "Tent can wait, safer here." She hesitated, her pride battling with her exhaustion. But the air was cold, and the fire's warmth barely reached her skin. Finally, she sat down beside him, closer than before. The soldier noticed the faint glow of her markings, soft against the firelight. For a while, they ate in silence. Then, she spoke again, her words slower but clearer than before. "Why, you give weapon to me?" He looked at her, surprised by the question. "Because I trust you," he said simply. Her eyes widened slightly. Trust was not something her people gave easily, not even among themselves. To hear it spoken so plainly from a human shook her. "You." "Strange," she whispered. He laughed, the sound rough but genuine. "I've been told that before." The laughter carried into the night, echoing off the rocks. It was the first time either of them had felt something close to normal since the war began. As the fire burned lower, the soldier leaned back, stretching his arms. His gaze lifted to the stars above. "Back home, we used to look at the sky and dream about what was out there. Funny how those dreams turned into this." The alien girl followed his gaze, her eyes softening. Stars, same for all. But dreams, different. She rested her hands on her knees, staring at the flames. The human's presence was confusing. He was supposed to be her enemy, yet everything he did pulled her closer to trust. He gave her food, warmth, weapons, and words. He fought beside her without hesitation. Her heart carried suspicion, but also something new, something she had not felt since before the war. The night grew colder, and instinct guided her closer to the fire. The soldier noticed and shifted slightly, spreading the blanket so it covered them both. She stiffened at first, unused to such closeness. But when the warmth wrapped around her, she allowed herself to stay. Neither spoke again for the rest of the night. The jungle roared. Predators stalked, but on that rocky ledge, the fire burned, and the fragile bond between human and alien grew stronger. The war had taken everything from them. Yet in the middle of that ruin, something unexpected was beginning to form, a small refuge in the heart of chaos. Dawn broke slowly, painting the jungle in shades of gold and green. Mist clung to the treetops like a ghostly blanket, and the calls of strange birds echoed through the vast canopy. The human soldier woke first, his instincts sharp as ever. He checked his weapon, then scanned the horizon. The alien girl stirred. Beside him, the faint glow of her markings dimming as the sunlight grew stronger. For a moment, she simply watched him. The way he moved, calm, steady, never wasting energy, was unlike her people, who relied on speed and power. Humans seemed fragile on the surface, yet this one carried himself with a quiet strength that made her curious. The soldier glanced at her and gave a small nod. "We move." She rose gracefully, brushing dust from her armor. Together they began their descent from the rocky ledge, entering the forest again. The air was heavy with dampness, and the ground sucked at their boots. Every step echoed with the rustle of unseen creatures. As they walked, she broke the silence. "You, no fear?" He gave her a faint smile. "Always fear. But I keep moving." Anyway, her head tilted, confused. For her people, fear was weakness. To admit it openly was unthinkable. Yet here he was, saying it without shame. She considered his words as they pressed deeper into the jungle. By midday, they found themselves at the edge of an abandoned outpost. Its metal walls were torn and rusted, half swallowed by vines. The flag of a long-forgotten army hung in tatters. The soldier raised his weapon carefully, checking for signs of life. The alien girl crouched low, her knife ready. Inside, silence ruled. Broken crates lay scattered across the floor. A small generator hummed faintly in the corner, surprisingly still alive. The soldier's eyes lit up. Power meant equipment, maybe even supplies. He moved quickly, searching the storage units. To his relief, he found sealed water containers and medical packs. He tossed one toward her. "Take it, you'll need it." She caught it with quick hands, staring at the label. Human symbols, human tools. Her people had once called these things primitive. Yet here she was, clutching them like treasure. The soldier opened a medical kit and pulled out bandages. He gestured for her to sit. She hesitated but obeyed, lowering herself onto a broken chair. He pointed to a long cut on her arm, one she had ignored for days. Without asking further, he began cleaning the wound. She stiffened at his touch, her glowing eyes narrowing. No one had treated her injuries since the war began. Yet his hands were steady, careful, not demanding. He wrapped the bandage tightly, then stepped back. "Better." Her lips parted, but no words came. Gratitude was not something she easily spoke, especially to a human. Instead, she simply nodded. The quiet moment broke when a sound echoed through the outpost, heavy footsteps outside. Both froze. The soldier signaled with his hand, pointing toward the broken window. Through the vines, they saw armored figures approaching. Soldiers, but not human. Their armor glowed with alien symbols, and their weapons crackled with energy. The alien girl's face hardened. "Hunters," she whispered. The human's jaw tightened. He knew the type. These were scavengers, soldiers who roamed the ruins, killing survivors and claiming territory. He looked at her, then motioned silently. They moved together, slipping behind a collapsed wall. The footsteps grew louder, echoing through the ruined halls. The hunters entered, scanning with glowing visors. One kicked over a crate, another checked the generator. Their voices rang out in a sharp, guttural tongue. The human soldier breathed slowly, his finger resting on the trigger. He glanced at the alien girl. She met his eyes, and in that moment, no words were needed. They would fight together. The first hunter stepped closer, his weapon raised. The human struck first, leaping from cover with a burst of fire. Bullets tore through the silence, hitting armor and forcing the hunters back. The alien girl moved with lightning speed, her knife slashing across one soldier's throat before he could react. Chaos erupted. The outpost shook with the clash of metal, the roar of weapons. The human fired relentlessly, his movements precise. The alien girl danced between shadows, striking fast and vanishing again. One hunter swung his weapon toward the human, energy charging at its tip. Before he could fire, the alien girl threw her knife. It struck the soldier's chest, dropping him instantly. She darted forward, grabbing the fallen weapon, and blasted another hunter across the room. The human grinned, despite the danger. "Not bad." She gave a fierce smile in return. "Not slow." Together, they cut through the hunters, their movements a rhythm of survival and trust. When the last body fell, silence returned. The outpost smelled of smoke and burned metal. Both stood breathing hard, their bodies tense but alive. The human lowered his weapon, sweat dripping down his brow. The alien girl held the captured energy rifle tightly, her eyes glowing with determination. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, recognizing the truth. Alone, neither could have survived. Together, they had done the impossible. The soldier broke the silence with a dry chuckle. "Guess we make a good team." Her expression softened, just slightly. "Maybe more than team." The words hung between them, fragile but real. The war outside had not ended, but inside that ruined outpost, something had begun to change. The ruined outpost smelled of smoke and blood. The human soldier moved through the debris, gathering what little ammunition and supplies remained. His hands were steady, though his muscles ached from the fight. The alien girl leaned against a cracked wall, her new weapon cradled in her arms. Her chest rose and fell with deep breaths, but her glowing eyes never left him, for the first time. Since she had met him, she felt something strange: safety. Not the safety of walls or armies, but the safety of knowing someone would fight beside her. Her people had taught her that humans were unpredictable, dangerous, even weak. Yet this man had given her food, warmth, and trust. And now in battle, he had proven stronger than any story she had ever heard. The soldier glanced up at her. "You okay?" She blinked, surprised by the concern in his voice. Her people did not ask such things. They assumed strength, demanded endurance. Yet he asked, as if her pain mattered. "I live," she answered simply. He smirked faintly. Good enough. They spent the next hour cleaning the outpost. He repaired what he could, patching up broken barriers. She dragged the hunters' bodies outside, leaving them for the jungle. Predators would come soon, and it was better the corpses drew them away from the shelter. As the sun began to set again, the soldier lit a smaller fire inside the outpost. Its glow pushed back the shadows, giving them a fragile sense of peace. He laid out his blanket, gesturing for her to sit. She lowered herself carefully, her posture still proud but less rigid than before. The firelight painted her features in soft gold. She was beautiful in a way he had never seen, strong yet wounded, proud yet tired. He watched her quietly, then asked, "What's your name?" Her eyes lifted to meet his. For a moment, she hesitated. Names carried meaning among her people, often hidden from enemies. But here, in this ruined place, he was no enemy. "Saraya," she said at last. He nodded. "Saraya," he repeated, as if testing the weight of the word. "I'm Daniel." The names hung between them like a bridge, fragile but real. She said his name softly once, tasting the sound. It felt strange on her tongue, yet not unpleasant. Silence returned, but it was no longer empty. It carried something unspoken, an understanding that they were no longer just two strangers forced together by war. They were becoming something more. Later that night, the jungle roared outside. A beast howled in the distance, its cry shaking the broken walls. Saraya flinched slightly, her hand tightening around her weapon. Daniel noticed and shifted closer, placing his hand over the fire to test its strength. "They won't come near," he said firmly. She looked at him, her voice quiet. "How you know?" He shrugged. "I don't, but I've learned fear doesn't help." Her eyes lingered on him. He spoke with such certainty, even when admitting he wasn't sure. To her, it was confusing. To her, it was powerful. Sleep came slowly. Daniel rested against the wall, his weapon at his side. Saraya stayed awake longer, watching the fire. The warmth reminded her of the first moment she had stepped into his camp, frightened yet drawn to safety. She turned her gaze to him, studying the lines of his face. His features were rough, scarred by war, yet they carried a kind of calm she had never seen before. By morning, they moved again. The outpost was safe, but not for long. Scavengers would return, and more hunters would come. Daniel carried his pack, while Saraya held her new weapon with practiced hands. As they traveled, Saraya spoke more. Her words were broken, but her effort was clear. "Your people, why fight? Galaxy big, why not hide?" Daniel stepped over a fallen log, answering without hesitation. "Because hiding doesn't keep you free. We fight because we want to live on our own terms." She thought about his words for a long time. Her people had fought too, but always because others forced them. Never for themselves. Never for freedom. The day grew hotter. They reached a ridge that overlooked the valley below. Smoke rose in the distant, signs of another battle. Saraya's heart tightened. Somewhere out there, her people were still fighting, maybe dying. Daniel noticed her expression. "We don't have to go that way," he said. She looked at him, surprised again by his words. He didn't speak like a commander giving orders. He spoke like a companion, offering choice. No one had ever done that for her before. Slowly, she shook her head. "No, we go, my people, may be there." Daniel nodded. "Then we go." They descended the ridge together. The jungle thickened again, swallowing them in vines and shadows. Each step forward carried risk, but also something new, trust that had not existed days before. As night began to fall, they made camp beneath a massive tree whose roots twisted like walls around them. Daniel built a fire, and Soraya sat close, her weapon resting against her leg. The flames flickered, and for the first time, she allowed herself to lean back, her shoulders lowering. Daniel glanced at her. "You're different now." She raised a brow. "Different?" He nodded. "Not just a fighter, you look calmer." Her lips curved slightly, the hint of a smile. "Because humans strange, human give trust, human share fire." Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "Guess strange isn't always bad." The firelight reflected in her glowing eyes. For Soraya, the tent of the human, the fire of his camp, had become more than shelter. It was refuge. It was something she had not expected to find in war, a place where heart could rest, even if only for a moment. The night passed with heavy silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the distant cries of creatures in the jungle. Daniel slept lightly, his hand never far from his weapon. Soraya sat awake for hours, her glowing eyes fixed on the flames. She thought about everything that had happened since she first stepped into his camp. At first, he was only a stranger, an enemy even. Now she felt something deeper, something that unsettled her more than the war itself. When dawn came, the air was heavy with smoke. From the ridge they had passed earlier, a faint orange glow rose into the sky. The sound of explosions rolled through the jungle like distant thunder. Soraya's heart clenched. Her people were near, but so was death. Daniel stood beside her, watching the smoke. His jaw tightened. He had lost too much already, but he knew what she was thinking. "If you go, you might not come back," he said. She looked at him, her expression steady. "If I not go, then who left for them?" He studied her for a long moment. Her words reminded him of himself fighting because he couldn't turn away. He nodded slowly. "Then we go together." They moved through the jungle quickly, their steps silent and sharp. Birds scattered from the trees as artillery boomed in the distance. The closer they came, the louder the chaos grew. Smoke thickened, and the smell of burning metal filled the air. When they reached the battlefield, Soraya froze. Her people were there, but not as she had hoped. Broken ships burned in the valley. Scattered survivors fought desperately against hunters in black armor. The hunters moved in squads, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Soraya's chest tightened, but Daniel stepped forward, raising his weapon. "We end this," he said firmly. Together, they descended into the valley. The hunters turned as gunfire rang out. Daniel moved like a shadow, every shot precise. Soraya darted between enemies, her stolen rifle blazing with energy. The battle was chaos, but in the middle of it, the two of them fought as if they had trained together for years. One of Soraya's people spotted her through the smoke. His eyes widened in shock. "You fight with him?" He shouted in disbelief. Soraya didn't answer. Instead, she cut down another hunter with a burst of fire. Daniel covered her flank, taking a hit to his shoulder but refusing to fall. He pushed forward, driving the hunters back step by step. The tide began to turn. Inspired by Soraya's courage and the sight of a human fighting beside her, her people rallied. Their scattered defense grew stronger, and soon the hunters began to retreat. When the last enemy fell, silence rolled over the valley. Bodies lay scattered, and smoke rose into the sky. But for the first time in days, victory belonged to the survivors. Soraya stood at the center, her weapon lowered, her chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Her people gathered around her, staring with disbelief at the human by her side. Whispers spread quickly, some filled with doubt, others with awe. One of her commanders stepped forward, his armor scorched. "Why do you stand with him?" he demanded. Soraya's glowing eyes narrowed. "Because he fought when others ran. Because he gave when others took. Because without him, I would not stand here now." Her words carried across the valley, silencing the whispers. Her people looked at Daniel differently, now not as prey, not as an enemy, but as something else. Something they could not name yet. Daniel, bleeding from his shoulder, simply stood tall. He didn't seek their approval. He had fought because it was right, not because he wanted recognition. As the survivors began to gather their wounded, Saraya moved closer to him. She placed her hand gently on his arm, the same arm that had pulled her from death more than once. "You gave me refuge," she said softly. "Now you are refuge." He met her gaze, tired but steady. For a long moment, neither spoke. The bond between them was unspoken, but it was real, stronger than war, stronger than fear. The sun broke through the smoke, casting golden light over the battlefield. The war had not ended, but something had changed. Where once there had been division, now there was a fragile thread of unity, woven between a human soldier and an alien girl who had never expected to find trust, warmth, or hope in his tent. For Daniel, survival had always been the goal. For Saraya, war had always been her life. But now, as they stood together among survivors, both realized they had found something greater, something worth fighting for beyond themselves. A human's tent had become her refuge, but now their bond had become much more. In the heart of war, they had discovered not just survival, but the beginning of peace. Asterisk,